Time to take another look at the morning papers. Here with me to review them are the broadcaster and journalist Afia Hagan and writer and academic Mo Lovett. So welcome back, both of you. Afia, we're starting with you. An article in The Guardian that's taken your interest about ADHD.
Yeah, so this is about the awareness of ADHD, and it was really skyrocketed, particularly amongst women in the past year, thanks to celebrities like Sue Perkins and Nadia Sawalha, who have talked about their diagnosis later in life. And yes, this means that more people are aware of their diagnosis of ADHD, but it also means that NHS waiting times have gone up, sadly, as well. So you have more people waiting to get their own diagnosis and waiting to see specialists about it. Now, the number of people who are on at least one ADHD medication has gone up 20% from 2021 to 2022. So it's great that more people are being made aware of the condition and how it affects their outcomes, how it's perhaps affected their education earlier on in life, and to where they are now. But that does mean that as more people are going to their doctor, talking about their needs and them being referred to specialists, NHS waiting times have gone up rapidly as well.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And some of these people who are diagnosed later in life are so interesting when they talk about it. They say, now everything makes sense quite often, don't they? It's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Sun now, Mo. And this is the suggestion that Britain is about to send tanks to Ukraine. We have had reports they were considering sending about 10 tanks, I think. So what's the Sun saying?
Yeah, so the Sun's revealing that the PM will send a tank squadron to Ukraine. This is ahead of a potential spring offensive to take back territory captured by Europe. It's also part of a kind of wider European intervention, including France and Germany, who will be sending armoured vehicles. And I believe the US is also committed to sending 50 fighting vehicles as well. The Ukraine Defence Minister has said that there will be a resumption of fighting in March when the weather takes a turn for the better, and they're hoping to recapture some of the territory that's been lost over the past year. And I think it also interestingly comes on the back of the news this week that the Russians have captured that small town of Soledar, but one which there's been some intense slaughtering of mercenaries who've been trying to defend the territory, and the bloodshed that's incurred. So so this is obviously a concerted effort as the weather moves forward for Western countries to support Ukraine in kind of defending their territory, really.
Yeah, interesting. And the Sun's suggesting that we will get that announcement next week, I think, on the tanks. Let's turn our attention to well, it's the royals, but it's related to the royals, isn't it? This story, Afia, that you've got here in the Telegraph. This is about the person who threw an egg at the king some time ago, a few months ago. Talk us through what this article is telling us.
This incident occurred in early December when the king was on a walkabout in Luton, and 21-year-old Harry May threw an egg at the king. It missed him. He had another one in his pocket to perhaps do it again. And he has said that he thought that the king's visit to Luton, which is he describes as a deprived area, was in protest, and that's why he felt the need to make this kind of protest. Now, this also happened earlier on last year in November when the King and Queen Consort were at a walkabout in York. They had eggs thrown at them as well. But Harry May, talking about this incident and talking about why he did it, he's been fined in court, costs, didn't face any prison time, but yes, saying that he felt on this occasion that the King's visit was in protest because Luton is a deprived area and he wanted to stand up for what he believes in.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's move on to another issue which has had so much debate, hasn't it, Mo? This is the online safety bill, and you've picked out an article. Is that the? I can't even read it. My eyes are going. The Times. It's the Times. Very small writing. And this is about. I think it's an amendment, isn't it, that is being pushed forward. Talk us through it. It's about how tech bosses could potentially be sanctioned for any issues in future.
Yeah, I mean, not only sanctioned, but could face jail time. So 44 Conservative backbenchers have signed this amendment, and it's got the backing of Labour too, which it was essentially seek to jail tech company bosses if they fail to protect children. It's called senior management liability, and echoes some of the things that we find in health and safety legislations. The bill, as you say, is going to be debated again on Tuesday, but there's a warning here from the former Attorney General that this is incredibly dangerous precedent, and it could actually backfire. I tend to agree with him. I mean, I think probably for different reasons. I think this is what you're essentially doing is you're trying to hold one person responsible for another person's words. You're also trying to attempt to decide what harm has come to that young person, depending on a whole range of factors, and trying to pinpoint that. So I think it's an incredibly slippery slope that has all sorts of precedents for freedom of the press and freedom of speech. So it's very concerning. It's one to watch. As I say, it'll be debated on Tuesday, but I hope common sense prevails, because although none of us want children to be at risk of harm online, I think really trying to pick through the weeds of this, you find that it's not philosophically simple at all as to how you attach blame and responsibility when a young person comes into contact with harm. So we'll wait and see. I mean, it looks like it could possibly be Rishi Sunak's first defeat. The government is looking at whether or not they'll make concessions or to appease the backbenchers. But yeah, one to watch on Tuesday, I guess.
Yeah, and the other point of view is that some people say if it was a construction firm and there was a death or an accident, that firm would be held liable. So there are arguments on both sides. It'll be really interesting to see that debate, won't it, on Tuesday, and see where that bill goes. Okay, let's move on to a weather story, Afia. This is in the Eye, is it? Yes. And we've got more wet and cold weather heading our way, and awful for any areas that are prone to flooding. They're really worrying times, aren't they?
Yeah, so this weekend we're going to have more rain and torrential downpours. We've got 258 flood alerts that are in place already from yesterday. That's across Wales and southwest England as rivers are bursting their banks. But the Met Office have actually issued a yellow warning for wind and rain. But next week we're going to get rid of the wind and rain, and it's going to be back to a cold snap. So temperatures will fall below 0 degrees for most of the week, and you could get down to -10 in Scotland, so wrap up warm.
What a brilliant service you two offer. You take us through the papers, you give us a weather forecast, we got the full package. Really lovely to have your company, Afia and Mo, this morning. Thanks very much indeed for talking us through the front pages and the inside ones as well. Thanks very much indeed.